I shaved my head for my daughter with cancer, and my boyfriend called me a bald freak at his cousin's wedding. I was halfway through shaving my head when my boyfriend texted. My daughter had been crying about being the only bald girl at school. Cancer took her hair at 7 years old, so I was surprising her we'd be bald together. The stylist had just taken the first chunk when my phone buzzed. Damien. My cousin's wedding is next week. Better not show up looking like a bald freak. Get a good wig. I started crying. Maria, the stylist, stopped immediately. What's wrong? I showed her. Her face went from concern to rage. GIRLS. We have a situation. Every woman in the salon turned. Within seconds, 15 women surrounded my chair. After I explained, Maria said, "Text him you'll look beautiful. Don't mention the wig." His response, "Good. Make sure it looks natural. Don't embarrass me." The salon exploded. These women started planning. The one getting extensions called her makeup artist friend. The nail tech called her photographer sister. They formed a group chat, Operation Wedding Revenge. When Maria finished, I looked in the mirror, completely bald. These women had hyped me up so much I felt beautiful. It's on the house, warrior mama. The wedding came. I walked in wearing a borrowed blue dress, pearls, perfect makeup. Completely bald. No wig. Damien's eyes went wide. He wouldn't look at me, wouldn't touch me, pretended I was a stranger. But everyone else saw a warrior. The bride pulled me aside. "I heard about your daughter. That's true beauty." Damien's mother, a cancer survivor herself, told me how beautiful I looked while he stood there seething. He faked food poisoning and left early. I stayed, danced, lived. That night, texts exploded. "You embarrassed me. Disgusting. Ugly. Get a wig or we're done." Got worse. Called me a freak. Said no man would want a bald woman. I screenshotted everything, sent it to his mother. She called, "Pack his things. Put them on the lawn." Then she called him. I heard her through the walls. "Your girlfriend shaved her head for her daughter with cancer." I was bald. Was I ugly? The salon posted our before/after photos online. This queen shaved her head for her daughter battling cancer. Her ex called her a bald freak. Went viral, 50K likes. Someone found Damien's Instagram. His last post had 2,000 comments calling him trash. His mom commented, "I'm ashamed to call you my son." My daughter's reaction when she saw me? Happy tears. "Mommy, we match. We're both beautiful." Damien tried calling a week later, crying about his mom disowning him and his job seeing the viral post. I blocked him. But yesterday, everything changed. My daughter came home from the hospital crying. Not about her hair, about something else. "What's wrong, baby?" The nurse said something weird. "What?" She said Daddy was asking about my treatment schedule. My blood froze. Damien wasn't her father. Her father died 3 years ago. Damien came to the hospital. She said he had paperwork. Said he was my stepfather. I called the hospital immediately. They confirmed someone claiming to be her stepfather had requested her medical records. Showed ID, asked about her chemotherapy schedule, her medications, side effects. "Why would he want that?" I asked. "Ma'am, we assumed he had permission. He knew all your information." I hung up, hands shaking. Then I found it. An insurance document on my kitchen table I hadn't left there. Damien still had his key. Life insurance. On my daughter. For $500,000. The beneficiary? Damien. The date? 3 days ago. While she was at treatment. My signature? Forged. I called the police. They said without proof he'd entered my home, they couldn't do much about the key. The insurance was another matter. Fraud. But hard to prove. Then my daughter said something that made everything click. "Mommy, why did Damien ask the nurse about drug interactions?" "What?" "He wanted to know what medications could make my chemo not work. Or make me sicker." I grabbed my daughter, grabbed my keys. "We're leaving. Now." As we drove to my sister's, I noticed a car following us. Black sedan. When I turned, it turned. My phone rang. "Damien, you shouldn't have humiliated me at the wedding. Are you following us? Your daughter's treatment is tomorrow at 9 a.m., right? Room 423? How do you—" Amazing what people tell you when you're the concerned stepfather. You're not her stepfather. According to the paperwork I have, I am. And if something happens to her, well, childhood cancer is so unpredictable. If you come near her, what? You'll shave your head again? The line went dead. The black sedan was still behind us. My daughter looked at me, scared. "Mommy, what's happening?" I called 911, but when I looked back, the sedan was gone. My phone buzzed. A photo of my daughter at the hospital yesterday, taken from inside her room. I pull into Iris's driveway going way too fast. My hands shaking so hard I can barely turn off the car. My daughter asks again what's happening, and I force myself to smile and say we're having a sleepover at Aunt Iris's house, even though my voice cracks on the words. She looks at me with those big eyes that see too much, and I grab our overnight bag from the back seat while checking the street behind us for the black sedan. Nothing. Just empty suburban street with porch lights glowing. I take her hand and we hurry to the front door. Iris must have been watching because she opens it before I can knock. Takes one look at my face when she opens the door and immediately ushers us inside, locking the deadbolt behind us. She checks the peephole twice, then slides the chain lock into place. My daughter runs upstairs to play with Zoe without needing to be told, and I hear their voices fade as they disappear into Zoe's room. The second they're gone, I collapse on Iris's couch and show her everything. My hands won't stop shaking as I pull out the forged insurance policy, open my phone to show the hospital records request, pull up the photo taken from inside the treatment room. Iris reads through each piece, her face getting paler with every word. She looks at the photo of my daughter in her hospital bed, taken from the doorway like someone was watching her. Iris calls her husband, who works in the hospital administration at a different medical center, putting him on speaker. His voice is calm and professional as he explains that Damien exploited a common security gap where staff verify identity, but don't always confirm legal relationships. He says we need to report this immediately to both hospital security and police, and offers to help navigate the medical facility bureaucracy. He asks if we have copies of everything, tells Iris to make sure I don't delete any texts or photos because they're evidence now. After we hang up, I try calling Detective Archie Clayton, who handled the initial report about Damien's harassment after the wedding, but it's 9 p.m. and I get voicemail. I leave a message explaining the escalation with the insurance fraud and hospital infiltration, my voice breaking as I describe the threat about drug interactions. I tell him about the black sedan following us, about Damien knowing my daughter's room number and treatment schedule. I send him photos of everything through text, so he'll have them when he checks his messages. Iris makes tea neither of us drinks, and we sit on her couch listening to the girls laugh upstairs while I keep checking my phone for the detective to call back. That night, I barely sleep, checking my phone every few minutes for the black sedan and keeping my daughter in bed with me. Every car sound outside makes my heart race, and I realize Damien has successfully made me terrified in what should be a safe space. I get up 3 times to check that all the doors are locked, that the windows are secure. Iris gave us the guest room that faces the backyard instead of the street, which helps a little. My daughter sleeps curled against me, her breathing steady and peaceful while I stare at the ceiling counting the hours until morning. At 3 a.m., I hear a car door slam outside and I'm at the window in seconds, but it's just Iris's neighbor coming home late. I crawl back into bed and force myself to close my eyes. Morning comes and Detective Clayton calls back at 7 a.m., his voice serious when he hears about the developments. He says the forged insurance policy is clear fraud, and the hospital infiltration combined with the threatening call gives them enough for stalking and terroristic threat charges, but I need to come file formal reports immediately. He tells me to bring everything, every text message, every document, every piece of evidence I have. He says to leave my daughter somewhere safe and come to the station as soon as possible. Iris offers to keep my daughter home from the school, but I realize that makes her a prisoner too. Instead, we call the school and explain there's a safety concern, providing them with Damien's photo and strict instructions that only Iris or I can pick her up, with ID verification required. The school secretary sounds alarmed but professional, saying she'll notify all the teachers and the front office staff. She asks if we need to involve the school resource officer, and I say yes. Give him all the information too. My daughter eats breakfast with Zoe, completely unaware that every adult in the house is on high alert. At the police station, Detective Clayton reviews everything methodically, spreading the insurance documents across his desk, pulling up the screenshots of threatening texts on his computer, studying the photo from the hospital room. He takes my daughter's statement about Damien's questions regarding drug interactions, writing down every word she remembers him asking the nurse. He says the drug interaction questions are particularly damning because they show intent to harm, not just harassment. He explains that asking about what medications could interfere with chemotherapy crosses a line from stalking into something much darker. The detective explains that while they can arrest Damien for the threats and fraud, the challenge is finding him since he's clearly aware we're onto him. He asks if I have any idea where Damien might be staying, and I realize I never knew much about his life beyond what he chose to show me. I tell him Damien always came to my place, never invited me to his. I don't know where he works now after losing his job from the viral post. I don't know his friends or his hangout spots. Detective Clayton writes all this down, nodding like it confirms something he already suspected. I mention that the salon women from Maria's shop have been checking on me, and Detective Clayton's eyes light up. He says community networks often provide better intelligence than police databases, and suggests I ask if anyone has seen Damien or his black sedan around town. He gives me his cell number and tells me to call immediately if anyone spots him, day or night. I call Maria from the police station, my fingers shaking as I scroll through my contacts. She answers on the first ring, and before I can even explain, she says she's been worried sick since the wedding. I tell her about Damien at the hospital, the forged insurance policy, the threatening call, the photo from inside my daughter's room. There's a long silence. Then I hear her voice change into something hard and focused. She says the salon women never stopped watching after the viral post, that they knew someone like Damien wouldn't just disappear quietly. Within minutes, my phone starts buzzing with notifications from a group chat I didn't know existed. 15 women, the same ones who surrounded my chair that day, all posting that they're now on active lookout for Damien's black sedan. Maria texts me privately that 3 of her clients work at different hospitals across the city, 2 others work night shifts at gas stations, and 1 manages an apartment complex downtown. She says they're spreading the word to report any sightings immediately, and someone already suggested checking budget motels since Damien probably can't afford anything nicer after losing his job. Detective Clayton finishes reviewing my statement and makes a phone call right there at his desk. I hear him talking to someone at the hospital, his voice firm as he explains this is now an active criminal investigation involving threats against a child. He tells them he needs to interview the nurse who spoke with Damien, and he wants all security footage from the oncology wing for the past week. When he hangs up, he explains that the hospital initially resisted due to privacy concerns, but once he mentioned federal fraud charges and child endangerment, they agreed to full cooperation. He says they're sending an officer over right now to collect the footage and take statements from staff. The footage might show what Damien was wearing, what time he visited, and most importantly, what vehicle he drove and where he parked it. He also mentions that hospitals have cameras in hallways and elevators, so even if Damien avoided the main entrance, they'll likely have him on video somewhere. My phone rings at 11:53 a.m. and the caller ID shows a number I don't recognize with an 800 prefix. A woman introduces herself as an investigator from the insurance company, and her voice is absolutely furious. She says Detective Clayton contacted their fraud division this morning about an attempted policy on my daughter, and she's been reviewing the paperwork for the past hour. She explains that what Damien attempted isn't just regular fraud. It's a federal crime because it involves forging documents to take out life insurance on a minor without parental consent. She rattles off violations I've never heard of, things about interstate commerce and mail fraud and identity theft statutes. She says their company takes these cases extremely seriously because they can't allow people to use life insurance as a murder weapon. The way she says murder weapon makes my stomach drop, because that's exactly what Damien was trying to do. She promises that their fraud division is now fully involved, and they'll be working directly with Detective Clayton to build the criminal case. The investigator keeps talking, and I can hear her typing rapidly on a keyboard. She says the signature on the insurance application is a sophisticated forgery, not just someone signing my name sloppily. She explains that the pen pressure, the letter formation, and the flow all suggest either someone with practice at document fraud or someone who paid a professional forger. She asks if Damien ever worked in banking, real estate, or any field that involved document handling. I tell her he worked in sales at a car dealership before getting fired, and she makes a note of that. She says they're now checking their database to see if Damien's name appears on any other suspicious policy applications, either as a beneficiary or as someone who helped process applications. If he's done this before, even unsuccessfully, it establishes a pattern that makes the criminal charges much stronger. She tells me she'll be in touch within 48 hours with their findings, and she gives me her direct number in case I remember anything else about Damien's work history or skills. I drive back to Iris's house, my mind spinning with everything that happened at the police station. When I walk through the door, I hear laughter coming from the living room. My daughter and Zoe are sprawled on the floor playing a board game, and my daughter is giggling at something Zoe just said about the game rules. I stand in the doorway watching them, and for a moment I forget about Damien and the threats and the fear. My daughter looks so normal, so happy, so completely unaware that someone is actively trying to hurt her. She's wearing her favorite purple shirt and her headscarf with the butterflies on it, and she's arguing playfully with Zoe about whether you're allowed to skip spaces in the game. Something shifts inside me as I watch her laugh. Damien is not going to steal this from her. He's not going to take away her childhood, her joy, her ability to just be a 7-year-old kid playing games with her cousin. I feel determination replace some of the fear that's been crushing my chest since yesterday. I walk over and kiss the top of her head, and she looks up at me with a huge smile and asks if I want to play the next round. My phone rings at 2:30 p.m. while I'm helping Iris fold laundry. The caller ID shows the hospital's main number, and my heart immediately starts racing. A woman introduces herself as Gracie from the Patient Advocacy Office, and she starts by apologizing profusely for what happened with Damien accessing my daughter's medical records. She sounds genuinely upset, her voice shaking slightly as she explains that the hospital takes patient privacy incredibly seriously, and they're horrified that their protocols failed. She tells me they're implementing immediate changes, effective today. From now on, all medical record requests for minors require two-factor identity verification, which means not just showing an ID, but also answering security questions that only the actual parent would know. Additionally, before any information is released, the hospital will call the parent directly at the number on file to confirm the request is legitimate. She says these changes are being rolled out across their entire hospital system, not just the oncology department. She asks if I'm comfortable continuing my daughter's treatment at their facility, and promises that I'll be assigned a patient advocate who will personally oversee every appointment to ensure nothing like this happens again. Gracie keeps talking, and then she mentions something that makes me sit up straight. She says the nurse who spoke with Damien has been interviewed by both hospital security and Detective Clayton, and the nurse remembered a detail that might be important. Damien mentioned he worked night shifts, which is why he came to the hospital during afternoon hours when he should have been sleeping. The nurse didn't think much of it at the time, but now it gives police a potential pattern to track. If Damien works nights, he's probably sleeping during the day and active in the afternoons and evenings. That might help narrow down where he's staying or what kind of job he currently has. Gracie says she's sharing this information with Detective Clayton, and she's also provided a detailed description of what Damien was wearing when he came to the hospital. She tells me again how sorry she is, and she gives me her direct cell number and says I can call her anytime, day or night, if I have concerns about my daughter's safety at the hospital. My phone buzzes with a text from Maria at 4:15 p.m. One of her clients just left the salon and called to report seeing a black sedan matching the description parked outside a budget motel near the highway. Maria forwarded the information to Detective Clayton along with the exact address and the client's phone number in case police need to interview her. I immediately call Detective Clayton, who says he's sending officers to check it out right now. He tells me to stay at Iris's house and keep my doors locked. 20 minutes later, he calls back with an update. The black sedan is gone from the motel parking lot, but the front desk clerk confirmed that a man matching Damien's description checked in 3 days ago using cash and a fake name. The clerk says the man was nervous, kept looking out the window, and asked specifically for a room facing the parking lot so he could see his car. Detective Clayton says they're collecting the registration information Damien provided, even though it's probably fake, and they're requesting security footage from the motel's cameras. Detective Clayton calls again an hour later, and this time his voice has a different tone. The motel clerk provided security footage from the check-in, and it clearly shows Damien, but he looks completely different from the polished, confident man I dated. In the footage, his hair is messy and unwashed. His clothes are wrinkled like he slept in them, and he keeps fidgeting and looking around like he expects someone to jump out at him. Detective Clayton says this is actually significant because it suggests Damien is unraveling psychologically. The public shaming from the viral post, losing his job, his mother disowning him, all of it has clearly taken a toll. Clayton explains that this makes Damien more unpredictable and potentially more dangerous because desperate people make impulsive decisions. But it also means he's more likely to make mistakes, to slip up in ways that will help police find him. The detective says they're checking every budget motel within a 20-mile radius, and they've distributed Damien's photo to all the front desk clerks with instructions to call immediately if he tries to check in anywhere. I barely sleep that night, lying next to my daughter in Iris's guest room and listening to every sound outside. The next morning, I stare at my daughter's chemotherapy appointment reminder on my phone and feel sick with fear. She's supposed to go to the hospital today, the same hospital where Damien walked right in and accessed her records. Detective Clayton calls at 7 a.m. like he can read my mind. He says he's arranged for a plainclothes officer to accompany us to the appointment, someone who will look like a regular family member, but who is actually armed and trained. He's also contacted hospital security, and they're putting extra guards on the oncology floor during our visit. All the entrances to the wing will be monitored, and security will have Damien's photo at every checkpoint. Clayton tells me we'll enter through the staff entrance that requires badge access, and he'll personally escort us inside. He says my daughter needs her treatment, and they're going to make sure she gets it safely. I agree to the plan, even though every instinct in my body is screaming to keep her away from that hospital. But missing chemotherapy isn't an option, and I have to trust that all these precautions will keep her safe. That evening, my phone rings while I'm trying to get my daughter to eat something. I see the name on the screen and almost drop the phone. Damien's mother. My finger hovers over the decline button, but something makes me answer. Her voice comes through shaking and raw in a way I've never heard before. She tells me Damien called her 2 hours ago begging for money. She refused. He started screaming at her through the phone, saying I ruined his entire life and he was going to make things right. The way he said it, she explains, made her blood run cold. She called the police immediately and filed a report about the threat. I can hear her crying now, apologizing over and over for raising someone who could threaten a sick child. I tell her it's not her fault, but she keeps saying she should have seen the signs earlier, should have stopped him before it got this far. She asks if she can come to the hospital appointment tomorrow. She wants to be there as additional support, as a witness, as a physical barrier between her son and my daughter if necessary. She says she's prepared to testify against him in court about his character and the threatening statements he made to her. I agree without hesitation, and after we hang up, I sit staring at my phone wondering how someone who raised such a good woman could also have raised someone like Damien. I spend the rest of the night at Iris's kitchen table making a safety plan for tomorrow's hospital visit. Iris brings me coffee and sits with me while we map out every detail. We'll arrive through the staff entrance that requires badge access. Detective Clayton promised to have officers at all public entrances checking IDs and watching for anyone matching Damien's description. The oncology staff will be alerted to call security immediately if anyone suspicious appears on the floor or asks questions about my daughter. I write it all down in a notebook, drawing a diagram of the hospital layout that Iris's husband provided, marking the secure routes and exits. My hands shake while I write and Iris reaches over to steady them. She tells me we're going to keep my daughter safe, that we have an entire army of people protecting her. I want to believe her, but I keep seeing that photo of my daughter in her hospital bed, taken from inside her room while she was vulnerable and alone. The next morning arrives too fast. I wake up at 5:30 after maybe 2 hours of sleep, and I find Iris already awake making breakfast. My daughter comes downstairs rubbing her eyes, asking why everyone is up so early. I tell her we're going to the hospital a bit differently today, that some extra friends are coming to support her during treatment. She accepts this easily because she's used to the salon women and other people showing up to help. We drive to the hospital in Iris's car instead of mine, following the route we planned last night. Detective Clayton meets us in the staff parking lot, and Damien's mother pulls up right behind us. My daughter's face lights up when she sees her, calling her grandma even though that's not technically what she is anymore. Damien's mother bends down and hugs my daughter tight, telling her how brave she is. We walk together toward the staff entrance, my daughter holding both our hands, completely unaware of the danger we're protecting her from. The badge reader beeps green when Clayton swipes his card and the door clicks open. Inside, 2 uniformed officers stand by the elevator, and I see my daughter's eyes widen slightly. I squeeze her hand and tell her they're here to help keep everyone safe today. She nods and presses the elevator button, chattering about the cartoon she wants to watch during treatment. The oncology floor feels different today with the extra security presence. Nurses I recognize give me sympathetic looks as we pass, and I realize the whole staff knows what happened. We settle into the treatment room, and my daughter climbs onto the bed while the nurse prepares her port for the IV. Damien's mother sits on one side of the bed. I sit on the other, and Detective Clayton positions himself just outside the door where he can watch the hallway. The nurse starts the IV, and my daughter picks a cartoon on the TV mounted to the wall. I try to focus on her, on the bright colors of the show and her occasional giggles at the jokes, but my eyes keep darting to the doorway. Every footstep in the hallway makes my shoulders tense. Every voice that passes makes my heart rate spike. I count the drips from the IV bag, trying to ground myself in something concrete and measurable. 1 hour of treatment. 60 minutes. We can do this. Halfway through, a nurse I don't recognize walks into the room. I'm on my feet before I realize I've moved, positioning myself between her and my daughter's bed. The nurse stops, hands raised slightly, and introduces herself as the charge nurse for the oncology wing. She apologizes for what happened with her colleague who gave Damien information. Her voice is sincere and pained as she explains that the entire staff received emergency training yesterday on verification procedures and patient privacy protection. She says what happened to us should never have been possible, and they're implementing multiple new safeguards to prevent it from ever happening again. My daughter watches this interaction curiously, and I force myself to relax and sit back down. The charge nurse checks my daughter's vitals and makes notes on her chart, then mentions something that makes my attention snap back to full alert. Hospital administration reviewed all access logs for the oncology floor and found something strange. Someone used an expired visitor badge to access the wing last week. Security is checking footage right now to identify who used that badge and how they got it. I glance at Detective Clayton in the doorway, and he's already on his phone, presumably calling someone about this new information. My daughter finishes her treatment without any other incidents. The nurse removes her IV and places a small bandage over the port site. My daughter asks if she can have a popsicle from the freezer they keep for kids after treatment, and the nurse brings her a red one. She eats it slowly while we gather our things, and I try to make my movements calm and normal, even though my entire body is vibrating with leftover adrenaline. Detective Clayton's phone rings just as we're preparing to leave. He steps into the hallway to answer it, and I watch his expression change as he listens. When he comes back in, he tells me the motel where Damien stayed reported that he left behind a laptop when he checked out this morning. They're getting a warrant to search it for evidence of the insurance fraud and any other schemes he might have been planning. This is good news, Clayton says, because digital evidence is hard to deny in court. I nod, trying to feel relieved, but all I can think about is that Damien checked out of the motel, which means he's on the move again and we don't know where. We return to Iris's house, and the tension that's been holding me rigid all morning finally starts to ease. My daughter is tired from the chemo and the early morning, so she curls up on Iris's couch with a blanket. I sit on the floor next to the couch, watching her chest rise and fall with each breath. She looks so small and fragile lying there, her skin pale from the treatment, the bandage visible on her chest where the port is. I think about Damien asking questions about drug interactions, about medications that could make her sicker, and rage floods through me so intense I have to close my eyes and breathe through it. Damien's mother sits in the chair across from me, and when I open my eyes, she's crying silently while watching my daughter sleep. She whispers that she's sorry, and I tell her again that this isn't her fault. We sit in silence for a while, 2 women bound together by love for this sleeping child and horror at what her son tried to do. Evening comes, and my phone buzzes with the salon group chat. I open it to find the chat exploding with messages coming in so fast I can barely read them. Maria's friend saw Damien at a gas station near the hospital about 20 minutes ago. He was filling up the black sedan, looking around constantly like he expected someone to appear. The friend took a photo of his license plate from her car and already sent it to Detective Clayton with the timestamp and location. Other women in the chat start reporting their positions, saying they're driving past the gas station to see if he's still there. I watch this coordination happening in real time. These women who barely knew me 2 weeks ago now conducting surveillance to protect my daughter. Maria messages me directly asking if we're safe, if we need anything, if she should come to Iris's house. I tell her we're okay, that the police know, that I'm grateful for all of them. She responds with a single sentence that makes me cry for the 3rd time today. We've got your back, warrior mama, and we're not letting that man anywhere near your girl. I text back that we're safe and thank her again for everything. Within the hour, my phone rings with Detective Clayton's number. He tells me they found the black sedan parked behind a motel on the other side of town. Cheap place where they take cash and don't ask questions. Officers are setting up surveillance right now, watching the car from unmarked vehicles. They're waiting for Damien to come back so they can arrest him without a chase that might put people in danger. I ask how long that might take, and Clayton says he doesn't know. Could be minutes or hours, but they've got eyes on the vehicle, and the moment Damien appears, they'll move in. I hang up and try to breathe normally, but my chest feels tight. Iris comes into the living room and asks what the detective said, so I tell her they found his car and they're waiting. She nods and squeezes my shoulder, then heads to the kitchen to start making dinner even though it's barely 5 o'clock. I know she's just trying to keep busy, same as me. I check my phone again even though only 2 minutes passed since Clayton called. My daughter and Zoe are watching a movie in the den, their laughter floating through the house, and I wonder how my daughter can still laugh after everything that happened today. I guess kids are good at living in the moment, not carrying all the fear forward like adults do. I walk to the window and look out at the street, checking for black sedans even though I know Damien's car is across town being watched by police. My phone buzzes and I nearly drop it grabbing to check, but it's just Maria asking if we're okay. I text back that we're waiting for news and she responds with a string of fierce emojis and a message saying the whole salon is on standby if we need anything. I put my phone in my pocket and force myself to sit down on the couch, but my leg starts bouncing immediately. Iris brings me a cup of tea that I don't drink. She sits across from me and we don't talk, just exist in this awful waiting space together. I check my phone again. 7 minutes since the last check. I get up and pace to the kitchen, then back to the living room, then to the window again. Nothing has changed outside. Everything looks normal and peaceful and completely wrong. I think about Damien sitting in some motel room right now, not knowing police are waiting for him. I think about what he planned to do to my daughter and my hands start shaking. Iris notices and brings me a blanket even though I'm not cold. Zoe calls from the den asking if we can order pizza for dinner and Iris says yes, even though she just started cooking. She puts away the half-chopped vegetables and pulls out her phone to order food, another small task to fill the endless waiting. My daughter comes into the living room and asks why I look sad. I paste on a smile and tell her I'm just tired from the long day at the hospital. She accepts this and curls up next to me on the couch, her small body warm against mine. I wrap my arms around her and kiss the top of her head where her hair used to be. She smells like the hospital still, that chemical clean scent mixed with her strawberry shampoo. The movie keeps playing in the den, but nobody's watching anymore. Iris sits in the chair checking her own phone. Zoe comes out and asks if she should pause the movie, and my daughter says no. She wants to keep watching. They go back to the den and I hear the movie volume increase. I check my phone again. 15 minutes since Clayton called. I open the salon group chat and see messages flying back and forth, women asking for updates and sharing encouraging words. Someone posts a photo of a candle they lit for us. Someone else shares a prayer. Maria messages me directly asking if I need her to come over and I tell her no. We're okay. Just waiting. She sends back a heart emoji and says she's keeping her phone in her hand. The pizza arrives and Iris pays the delivery guy. She brings slices to the girls in the den, then offers me a plate that I can't imagine eating. I take it anyway and hold it in my lap, the cheese getting cold and congealed. Iris eats standing up in the kitchen, her eyes on her phone. The sun starts setting outside and I watch the light change from gold to orange to pink. My daughter laughs at something in the movie and the sound makes my chest hurt. I check my phone again and it's been 40 minutes since Clayton called. I start imagining worst-case scenarios. Damien getting away somehow, disappearing before they can grab him. I text Clayton asking for an update, but he doesn't respond immediately. 5 minutes pass. 10. My phone finally buzzes, and it's just him saying they're still waiting. Damien hasn't returned to the car yet. I put my head in my hands and try to stay calm. Iris comes and sits next to me, not saying anything, just being there. The movie ends in the den, and my daughter asks if they can watch another one. Iris says yes, and I hear Zoe scrolling through options. The pizza sits untouched on my lap. I check the time, and it's almost 8 o'clock. 3 hours since we got here. 2 hours since they found Damien's car. I stand up and carry my plate to the kitchen, scraping the cold pizza into the trash. My phone rings and I grab it so fast I almost throw it across the room. Clayton's number. I answer before the first ring finishes. He says they have Damien in custody, arrested without any problems when he walked out to his car at 9:47. He's being held on stalking charges, terroristic threats, insurance fraud, and identity theft from the hospital records breach. I start crying so hard I can't breathe. Iris takes the phone from my hand and I hear her talking to Clayton, asking questions and writing things down. I sink onto the kitchen floor and sob into my knees. All the fear I've been holding since I saw that photo of my daughter floods out of me. Iris hangs up and kneels next to me, rubbing my back while I cry. She tells me Clayton said Damien will be arraigned tomorrow morning, and the prosecutor is going to ask for no bail because of the threats against a child. I nod, but can't stop crying. My daughter appears in the kitchen doorway asking what's wrong, and I try to pull myself together. I wipe my face and tell her everything's okay now. Mommy's just really tired. She comes and hugs me, and I hold her tight. This precious girl who Damien wanted to hurt. Iris makes me drink a glass of water and helps me up off the floor. She says I should try to sleep, that tomorrow is going to be a long day with the arraignment. I nod and take my daughter's hand, leading her to the guest room where we've been staying. I help her brush her teeth and get into pajamas, going through the normal bedtime routine like this is a normal night. She climbs into bed and asks if we can read a story. I grab a book from the stack Iris keeps for when Zoe was younger and read 3 chapters even though my voice keeps cracking. My daughter falls asleep halfway through the 3rd chapter, her breathing evening out into sleep rhythms. I close the book and just watch her for a while. This miracle child who survived cancer and now survived Damien too. I climb into bed next to her and she automatically curls into me like she did when she was a baby. I close my eyes and for the first time in days I actually fall asleep, deep and dreamless and peaceful. I wake up to sunlight streaming through the guest room window. My daughter is still asleep next to me, her face peaceful and young. I check my phone and it's almost 8 in the morning, which means I slept for almost 10 hours straight. I have 3 texts from Clayton saying he'll pick me up at 9:30 for the arraignment. I carefully slide out of bed without waking my daughter and head to the bathroom to shower. The hot water feels amazing on my tense muscles, and I stand under the spray for a long time, letting it wash away yesterday's fear. When I get out, Iris has coffee and toast waiting in the kitchen. She asks if I'm ready for today, and I say yes, even though I'm not sure I am. I get dressed in the nicest clothes I have at her house, a simple black dress and flats. Iris offers to let me borrow jewelry, but I shake my head. I don't need to look fancy. I just need to look like a mom protecting her kid. Clayton arrives exactly at 9:30. I kiss my daughter goodbye and she's still half asleep, mumbling something about pancakes. Iris promises to make her favorite breakfast, and I head out to Clayton's unmarked car. The drive to the courthouse takes 20 minutes through morning traffic. Clayton tells me what to expect, how arraignments work, what the prosecutor will argue. I nod along, but I'm mostly just thinking about seeing Damien in person again. We park in the courthouse lot and walk through security. The metal detector beeps and I have to empty my pockets, take off my shoes, go through again. Everything feels surreal and official and scary. We take the elevator to the 3rd floor and Clayton leads me down a hallway to the courtroom. Standing outside in the hallway is Damien's mother, dressed in a navy suit with her hair pulled back. She's holding a folder and when she sees me, her face crumples. She walks over and hugs me tight, apologizing again for her son. I hug her back because none of this is her fault. She pulls away and shows me the folder, tells me it's full of documents that prove Damien's history of manipulation and entitlement. Text messages where he blamed me for everything. Emails where he threatened people who crossed him. Even old report cards from the school showing a pattern of blaming others for his failures. She says she's meeting with the prosecutor after the arraignment to hand over everything. Clayton checks his watch and says we should go inside. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. Wood paneling and fluorescent lights and rows of benches. We sit in the 2nd row behind where the prosecutor will sit. Other cases are being called first, and I watch people approach the judge. Lawyers speaking in legal language I barely understand. Then they call Damien's case and everything sharpens into focus. A side door opens and Damien walks in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looks thinner than I remember, his face pale and unshaven. 2 officers guide him to the defense table where his public defender is waiting with a stack of folders. The judge enters and everyone stands, then sits again when she does. The prosecutor, a woman in a gray suit, starts reading the charges out loud. Stalking, terroristic threats, insurance fraud, identity theft, attempted child endangerment. Each word lands like a punch. Damien's lawyer argues that his client made mistakes during an emotional time, but never intended real harm. The prosecutor counters with the forged insurance policy, the hospital infiltration, the threatening phone call about drug interactions. She mentions the photo taken from inside my daughter's hospital room. The judge's face gets hard when she hears that part. She asks Damien if he understands the charges, and he nods, barely looking up. His lawyer requests bail, suggesting house arrest with an ankle monitor. The prosecutor objects strongly, saying Damien targeted a child with cancer and was actively surveilling us when arrested. The judge flips through papers on her desk, reading silently for what feels like forever. Then she looks up and denies bail completely. Damien will stay in custody until trial. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Outside the courthouse, Damien's mother wraps me in another hug and says she's meeting with the prosecutor this afternoon. She has text messages where Damien blamed me for everything, said he'd make me pay for humiliating him. Clayton drives me back to Iris's house and we sit in the driveway for a minute before I get out. He explains what happens next. The prosecutor will build her case over the next few weeks. Damien will probably be offered a plea deal because the evidence is really strong. If he refuses and we go to trial, I'll need to testify about everything. My daughter might have to testify too, though they'll try to avoid that. Clayton says the hospital investigation found something else. Damien bribed a janitor $200 to borrow his badge for an hour. That's how he got into the oncology wing without triggering security alerts. The janitor thought Damien was a family member who forgot his visitor pass. Now the janitor is fired and Damien has another charge added to his list. I thank Clayton for everything and head inside. My daughter is still curled up on the couch watching cartoons with Zoe. She looks so peaceful and normal that my chest hurts. Iris makes me lunch even though I'm not hungry, and I force myself to eat because I know I need to keep my strength up. That afternoon, my phone rings and it's Maria from the salon. Her voice is excited in a way that catches me off guard. She says the viral post about me shaving my head has gotten the attention of a local news station. They want to do a story about community support for families dealing with cancer. Maria asks if I'd be willing to be interviewed. I hesitate because the idea of being on TV makes me nervous. But then Maria says this could help other families recognize warning signs of partner abuse. Other women might see my story and realize they're not alone. I think about all the women at the salon who rallied around me, how their support literally saved me and my daughter. I say yes, I'll do the interview. But I tell Maria my daughter's face and name have to stay private. She's been through enough without having her image all over the news. Maria agrees immediately and says she'll coordinate everything with the station. The interview happens 2 days later at the salon. A reporter named Jessica arrives with a camera crew and asks me questions while Maria cuts someone's hair in the background. I talk about shaving my head for my daughter, about Damien's cruel texts, about the salon women who turned my pain into power. Then I explain how the harassment got worse after the wedding, how Damien infiltrated the hospital, forged insurance documents, threatened my daughter. Jessica's eyes get wider as I talk. She says this is exactly the kind of story that needs to be told. The camera focuses on my bald head while I speak, and I feel proud instead of ashamed. Maria shows them the group chat called Operation Wedding Revenge, explains how 15 women mobilized to support someone they barely knew. The segment airs 3 days later on the evening news. Iris records it and we watch together. There's my face on TV, my bald head shining under the salon lights. Maria talking about community and standing up for each other. The reporter explaining how an abusive ex-boyfriend's harassment turned into criminal threats against a child with cancer. They blur my daughter's face in the photos they show and use a fake name for her. The segment ends with information about domestic violence resources and warning signs of escalating abuse. My phone starts buzzing immediately. Messages from people I haven't talked to in years. Friends from high school. My daughter's teachers. Random people saying they saw the news and I'm brave. But the messages that hit hardest are from other women. Women who say they experienced similar abuse after leaving partners. Women who say seeing our community response gave them courage to report their own situations. One woman writes that her ex threatened her kids too and she thought she was crazy for being scared. Seeing my story made her realize she wasn't overreacting. Maria texts that she wants to start a support group at the salon for women leaving abusive relationships. Meeting twice a month after hours. I tell her that's a great idea and I'll help however I can. The next 2 weeks pass in a blur of normal life mixed with legal updates. My daughter goes to the school. I help Iris around the house. We have a chemotherapy appointment where everything goes smoothly with extra security in place. Then Prosecutor Pope calls with news that changes everything. They searched Damien's laptop. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Detailed research on life insurance policies and how to file claims. Screenshots of my social media showing my daughter's treatment schedule at the hospital. Notes about drug interactions and chemotherapy side effects. But the worst part is a document titled Making Her Pay that outlines a plan. Not detailed enough to prove he would have actually done it, but detailed enough to show he was thinking about it, planning it. The prosecutor's voice is serious when she explains what this means. The case isn't just harassment anymore. It's attempted harm of a child. Pope says with this evidence, Damien is facing 15 to 25 years in prison if convicted at trial. His public defender is pushing really hard for a plea deal. But Pope wants my input. Am I willing to accept reduced charges in exchange for guaranteed prison time and a permanent restraining order? Or do I want to go to trial and fight for maximum consequences? I tell her I need time to think about it. That night I can't sleep. I keep thinking about that document on Damien's laptop, making her pay. Like my daughter was just a tool for revenge. Like her life meant nothing except a way to hurt me. Part of me wants him to face every single consequence. Maximum prison time, full trial where everyone hears exactly what he planned. But the practical side knows that trials are unpredictable. Juries can be swayed. And going to trial means my daughter might have to testify. Might have to sit in a courtroom and talk about the scary man who asked about her medications. I talk it through with Iris over coffee the next morning. She says whatever I decide, she supports me. But she reminds me that a plea deal means certainty. Guaranteed prison time instead of the risk of an acquittal. I call Maria and she says the same thing. Certainty matters when you're protecting a child. Then I call Damien's mother and she starts crying on the phone. She says she'll support whatever decision I make. But she thinks a plea deal that puts him away for a long time is justice enough. She doesn't want my daughter to have to relive the trauma in court. I spend the whole day thinking about it. Watching my daughter play with Zoe, laughing at something silly. She's been through so much already with cancer. Chemo and needles and being sick and losing her hair. Does she need to go through a trial too? That evening, I call Prosecutor Pope back. I tell her I'll accept a plea deal if it guarantees at least 10 years in prison and a lifetime restraining order. Pope says she'll push for that in negotiations. 3 days later, Pope calls again. Damien accepted a plea deal. 12 years in prison for stalking, terroristic threats, insurance fraud, identity theft, and attempted child endangerment. He has to register as a violent offender when he gets out. Lifetime restraining order from me and my daughter. and he has to pay back all our therapy costs and security expenses. 12 years. My daughter will be 19 when he gets out. An adult. The plea hearing is scheduled for next week. Pope asks if I want to read a victim impact statement. I say yes, immediately. The hearing day comes and Iris watches my daughter while Clayton drives me to the courthouse. The courtroom is the same one from the arraignment. Damien sits at the defense table in his orange jumpsuit, not looking at anyone. The judge goes through the legal parts, making sure Damien understands what he's pleading guilty to. Then it's my turn to speak. I walk to the podium with my written statement shaking in my hands. I start reading. I describe the terror of receiving that photo from inside my daughter's hospital room, the fear that someone wanted to harm my child for revenge, the nights I couldn't sleep, checking every shadow for a black sedan. I talk about my daughter asking why the nice man wanted to hurt her, how she still has nightmares sometimes about bad people at the hospital, how cancer already stole her childhood, and Damien tried to steal her safety too. My voice breaks a few times, but I keep reading. I see Damien flinch when I mention my daughter's nightmares. His face goes red and he looks down at the table, but he doesn't cry, doesn't show real remorse, just embarrassment at being called out. The judge thanks me and asks Damien if he has anything to say. His lawyer whispers something to him. Damien stands up and says he's sorry for his actions, but his voice is flat, empty, like he's reading lines someone told him to say. The judge sentences him officially. 12 years. Damien's shoulders slump and the officers lead him out through the side door. I watch him go and feel nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, just relief that it's over. Outside the courthouse, Damien's mother is waiting. She walks over slowly and asks if we can talk. We sit on a bench in the sun and she tells me she's changing her will. Everything she has will go to a charity that supports children with cancer. She wants to name the fund after my daughter. She also asks if she can stay in touch. If I'm comfortable with it, she'd like to follow my daughter's treatment progress. Maybe visit sometimes. I'm surprised by how much her offer means. This woman who raised Damien but chose to stand with us instead. I tell her yes. She can stay in touch. My daughter could use another adult in her life who understands what cancer survival means. We exchange numbers and she hugs me one more time before leaving. Clayton drives me back to Iris's house. My daughter runs to the door when I come in, asking if everything's okay. I kneel down and tell her the bad man is going to jail for a very long time. He can't hurt us anymore. She wraps her arms around my neck and says good. Then she asks if we can have pancakes for dinner. I laugh and say yes. We can have pancakes. Over the next few months, something unexpected happens. His mother starts showing up at the hospital during my daughter's treatments. The first time I see her in the waiting room, I almost turn around and leave. But she stands up and walks over, her hands shaking a little. She asks if she can sit with us during the appointment. I look at my daughter, who nods, and I say yes. She sits quietly while the nurses hook up the IV, and when my daughter asks about her own cancer battle, she tells stories that make my daughter smile. She talks about losing her hair and feeling scared, but also about getting through it. My daughter listens with wide eyes, holding her hand. After that first visit, she comes back every other week. She brings coloring books and puzzle games. She tells my daughter about beating cancer and living 20 years in remission. She never mentions him, never makes excuses for what he did. She just shows up and gives my daughter hope that cancer doesn't have to win. I watch her with my daughter and realize she's giving us something real, something that helps more than I expected. The hospital finishes reviewing what went wrong with their security. Gracie calls me to her office one afternoon and walks me through all the changes they made. Now anyone asking for medical records has to scan their fingerprint and show 2 forms of ID. Parents get automatic phone calls before any information goes out about their kids. Every vendor who enters the building, even janitors and delivery people, has to pass a background check. Gracie shows me the new computer system that flags suspicious requests and requires supervisor approval. She says our case made them realize how easy it was for someone to lie their way into private information. The changes will protect other families from going through what we did. I thank her and feel a small weight lift, knowing something good came from all the fear. My daughter's next scan results come back better than the last ones. The oncologist sits down with us and explains that the tumors are shrinking. The chemo is working the way they hoped it would. She uses words like cautiously optimistic and encouraging progress. She talks about finishing the current treatment plan in about 6 more months, then switching to monitoring appointments instead of active chemo. My daughter asks if that means the cancer is going away, and the doctor smiles and says yes, that's exactly what it means. We both cry in the exam room and the doctor hands us tissues and says she's seen a lot of kids beat this, and my daughter is doing everything right. On the drive home, my daughter talks about what she wants to do when treatment ends. She wants to go swimming and play soccer and do all the things cancer took away. I promise her we'll do every single one. Maria calls me a few weeks later with news about the salon. She says so many women reached out after our story went viral, women dealing with their own abuse situations, that she decided to start a support group. The salon stays open late 2 nights a month now, and women gather after hours to talk and share their stories. Maria asks if I'd be willing to come speak at one of the meetings, to tell other women what happened and how the community helped us. I agree, nervous but wanting to help. The first meeting I attend, 12 women sit in salon chairs and on the floor, listening as I describe how things got bad with him, how the wedding became a turning point, how the salon women became my army. After I finish, 3 women come up to me crying, saying they didn't realize their own situations counted as abuse until they heard my story. One woman says she's leaving her boyfriend tonight because of what I shared. I hug her and give her my number, telling her to call if she needs anything. Walking to my car that night, I feel like maybe all the terrible things that happened can help someone else escape before it gets as bad as it did for us. 3 months after the sentencing, I noticed something while brushing my daughter's hair before bed. Tiny soft patches of new growth, like baby duck fuzz, covering parts of her scalp. She runs to the mirror and touches the new hair, squealing with excitement. She asks if we can let it grow long, maybe down to her shoulders. I smile and say of course we can grow it however she wants. Then I offer to let my own hair grow back too, thinking we could go through that together like we did with being bald. But she stops me and asks if we can both stay bald just a little longer. She says she likes that we match, that when people see us together they know we're a team. She says our bald heads make her feel brave. I look at my reflection next to hers in the mirror, both of us smooth-headed and smiling, and I tell her yes, we can stay bald as long as she wants. I start understanding what our matching bald heads really mean. It started as me trying to help her not feel alone at the school, but somewhere along the way, it became something bigger. When people see us, they see a mother and daughter who faced something terrible together. They see strength and love and refusing to hide. My bald head isn't about cancer anymore. It's about showing my daughter that we don't have to look like everyone else to be beautiful. It's about standing with her no matter what anyone thinks. We take new pictures together, both of us grinning at the camera with our bald heads shining in the sun. I post them on social media with a caption about choosing to match a little longer. The comments flood in with heart emojis and messages about how beautiful we both are. My daughter reads them over my shoulder and says, "See, Mommy, people get it." A letter arrives in the mail from the insurance company. I open it expecting more paperwork, but instead I find an apology. The letter says they're sorry for the security gaps that let someone attempt fraud on my daughter's life. They explain that they donated money to the Children's Hospital Oncology Program in my daughter's name. The letter includes a note from their fraud investigator, the same woman who called me months ago. She writes that our case changed how insurance companies across the country handle policies on minors. Now parents have to show up in person with ID and birth certificates before any policy gets approved. The investigator says she thinks about my daughter every time she reviews a new case, and she's grateful we caught it before anything worse happened. I fold the letter and put it in a box with all the other documents from this nightmare. Evidence that we survived and maybe helped other families stay safe. 6 months pass since the arrest. 6 months of treatments and scans and slow progress. Today is my daughter's last scheduled chemotherapy session. We arrive at the hospital early, and the nurses greet us like old friends, because we've been coming here for so long. They hook up the final IV bag and tell my daughter how proud they are of her. The oncologist stops by during the infusion and reviews the latest scans with us. She points to the images and shows us where the tumors used to be, explaining that there's no evidence of active cancer anymore. She says the word remission, and I start crying before she even finishes the sentence. My daughter squeezes my hand and asks if this means she's done. Really done. The doctor nods and says yes, no more chemo, just monitoring appointments every few months to make sure everything stays clear. When the last drop of medication finishes dripping, the nurses bring out a bell mounted on the wall in the hallway. They explain that every kid who finishes treatment gets to ring it. My daughter stands up, still connected to her port, and reaches for the rope. She pulls it 3 times and the bell echoes through the whole oncology floor. Other families in treatment rooms start clapping. Nurses cheer. I wrap my arms around my daughter and cry into her shoulder while she laughs and rings the bell one more time. That night, Maria throws a party at the salon. She closes early and decorates with pink balloons and streamers. A banner hanging across the mirror says "Cancer Survivor" in big glittery letters. My daughter walks in and gasps, her eyes going wide. All the salon women are there, plus Iris and Zoe, plus his mother, plus Detective Clayton who took time off work to come. Maria brings out a cake shaped like a bell, decorated with the words, "You did it." Everyone sings and cheers while my daughter blows out candles. She makes a wish and then tells everyone what she wished for, that the cancer never comes back. His mother hugs her and promises to take her shopping for a celebration outfit next week. Maria gives her a gift card for free haircuts once her hair grows back enough to style. The nail tech paints my daughter's fingernails with tiny pink ribbons. I watch her move around the salon, accepting hugs and laughing at jokes, looking healthier and happier than she has in over a year. She doesn't look like a sick kid anymore. She looks like a survivor. Standing in the middle of the celebration, I look around at all these faces. Maria, who stopped cutting my hair that first day to rally an army of women. The salon clients who became my protection squad and support system. Iris, who opened her home without hesitation. Detective Clayton, who took our case seriously. His mother, who chose us over her own son. These people started as strangers or acquaintances, people I barely knew. Now they're family, the kind you choose, the kind who show up when everything falls apart. I think about him sitting in prison, probably still blaming me for his choices, still not understanding what he did wrong. He tried to destroy us out of spite and wounded pride. Instead, he accidentally gave me something he never could have planned for. He gave me a community of people who proved that love and loyalty are stronger than hate. He gave me proof that asking for help isn't weakness. It's how you survive. My daughter runs over and pulls me onto the makeshift dance floor, and we spin around together while everyone claps. Both of us bald, both of us smiling, both of us surrounded by people who have our backs no matter what comes next. His mother arrives carrying a small wrapped box, her face lighting up when she sees my daughter surrounded by pink balloons and cake. She kneels down beside her and hands over the gift, and my daughter tears through the wrapping paper to find a leather journal with her initials embossed on the cover. His mother opens it to show blank pages waiting to be filled, and tells my daughter this is for writing down her thoughts and feelings as she gets better. She explains that when she went through her own cancer treatment, writing helped her process everything she couldn't say out loud. My daughter runs her fingers over the smooth leather and asks if she can write about the scary parts too, and his mother nods and says, especially the scary parts, because writing them down takes away some of their power. She tells my daughter that surviving hard things makes you stronger, that she can see that same strength in her that she had to find in herself during her own battle. My daughter hugs the journal to her chest and thanks her, and I watch them share this moment. Two cancer survivors separated by decades but connected by understanding. The weeks pass and my daughter's blood counts improve, her energy returns, her appetite comes back. She starts asking about going back to the school and seeing her friends, and I realize we've been living in survival mode for so long that I forgot to think about what comes after. Iris keeps insisting we can stay as long as we need and her house feels safe with its security system and extra bedrooms, but it's not ours. My daughter needs stability, a place that feels like home instead of temporary refuge. I start thinking about apartments we can afford on my limited income, scrolling through rental listings late at night while my daughter sleeps beside me. Everything either costs too much or sits in neighborhoods that make me nervous, and I wonder how we'll ever find somewhere that feels both safe and like home. Maria mentions during one of my visits to the salon that the apartment above her shop is coming available. The current tenant is moving out at the end of the month, and the landlord is looking for someone reliable who won't cause problems. 2 bedrooms, affordable rent, because it's above a business, right in the heart of the neighborhood where all these women proved they'll protect us. I tour it the next afternoon while my daughter is at a therapy appointment with Iris. The stairs lead up from the back alley to a small landing, and the apartment opens into a sunny living room with hardwood floors that creak under my feet. The kitchen is tiny but functional. The bathroom has a window, and the 2 bedrooms are just big enough for beds and dressers. I stand in the empty living room and look out the window at the street below, watching Maria through the salon's front window as she cuts someone's hair, and I feel safe in a way I haven't since Damien's arrest. The landlord says I can move in as soon as the current tenant leaves if I want it, and I sign the lease before I can second-guess myself. Moving day arrives 6 weeks later and becomes another community event that proves I'm not doing this alone. The salon women show up with their husbands and boyfriends and trucks. Iris arrives with Zoe and her husband. Detective Clayton comes in his personal vehicle loaded with boxes he helped me pack. Gracie from the hospital brings cleaning supplies and organizing bins, and his mother pulls up with a carload of kitchen items she says every home needs. We form an assembly line from the ground floor to the apartment, passing boxes and furniture up the stairs while music plays from someone's phone. Maria directs traffic like a general, telling people where to put things and making sure nothing gets damaged. My daughter runs up and down the stairs helping carry lighter items, her face flushed with excitement about having her own room again. By late afternoon, the empty apartment transforms into a space filled with furniture and boxes, and the warmth of people who showed up because they care. We order pizza and eat sitting on the floor of the living room, and my daughter announces, "This is the best moving day ever," because it feels like a party instead of work. My daughter spends the next few days decorating her new room, taping up drawings she made during chemotherapy sessions when she was too tired to do anything else. She hangs photos from the salon celebration on the wall above her bed and arranges her stuffed animals on the pillow. She tells me this feels like a fresh start, and I realize she's right because we're not just surviving anymore. We're building something new, creating a life that belongs to us in a space that feels safe. I hang curtains in the living room and organize the kitchen, and every small task feels like claiming this apartment as ours. Maria stops by most evenings after closing the salon to check on us, and sometimes we sit on the living room floor drinking tea while my daughter does homework at the kitchen table. This apartment above the salon becomes more than just a place to live, because it represents the community that formed around us when everything fell apart. 3 months after moving in, my daughter's oncologist clears her to return to the school full-time. She's nervous about being so far behind in her studies after missing most of the year, but her teachers have been wonderful about accommodations and catch-up plans. The hospital's patient advocacy fund covers tutoring twice a week to help her get back on track, and she throws herself into learning with the same determination she showed during treatment. I walk her to the school the first day back, both of us anxious about how the other kids will react to her, but her teacher greets her with genuine warmth, and the students barely react to her short hair. At pickup that afternoon, she bounces out of the building talking about everything she learned and the friends who saved her a seat at lunch. She catches up faster than anyone expected, staying after school for extra help and working through assignments at the kitchen table every night. Within weeks, she's back to grade level in most subjects, and I watch her confidence grow as she realizes she can handle this. I start working part-time at Maria's salon doing administrative tasks and booking appointments. The work isn't glamorous because I spend most of my time answering phones and managing the schedule and ordering supplies, but it gives me flexible hours for my daughter's medical appointments and therapy sessions. I love being part of the daily rhythm of the salon, hearing the conversations between stylists and clients, watching the community that saved us continue to support each other. Maria pays me fairly and never makes me feel like I owe her anything, and some days I bring my daughter to the salon after school so she can do homework in the break room while I finish work. The other stylists treat her like a niece, checking her homework and teaching her how to sweep hair and asking about her day. This job becomes more than just income because it keeps us connected to the women who proved their family. My daughter makes friends at the school who think her growing back hair looks cool and edgy, who don't treat her like she's fragile or different. She tells them proudly about beating cancer, and I overhear her explaining chemotherapy to a group of kids at pickup one day with the confidence of someone who survived something hard. Her new friends invite her to birthday parties and sleepovers, and I watch her bloom as she realizes her experience makes her strong instead of damaged. She joins the art club at the school and brings home paintings she's proud of, and her teacher tells me she has real talent for expressing emotions through color. The girl who cried about being the only bald kid at the school transforms into someone who wears her survival like armor, who knows she's tougher than most people her age will ever need to be. 1 year after Damien's arrest, we attend a victim impact program at the courthouse where Prosecutor Pope updates us on his status. He's in medium security prison 3 hours away, participating in mandatory counseling that the judge required as part of his sentence. Pope shows me reports from the prison indicating he's complied with all requirements and caused no disciplinary problems, and she says he's made no attempts to contact us directly or through third parties. The restraining order remains in effect for the duration of his sentence and extends 5 years beyond his release date, and Pope assures me the system is working to keep us safe. She explains that he won't be eligible for parole for at least 8 years, and even then, any parole board will consider the severity of his threats against a child. I leave the courthouse feeling like this chapter is truly closed, that he's someone who exists in the past instead of a present threat. My daughter's 1-year post-treatment scans come back completely clear, and the oncologist uses the word remission officially for the first time. She explains that while we'll continue monitoring with scans every 3 months for the next year, and then every 6 months after that, the prognosis is excellent. She says my daughter's body responded beautifully to treatment, and all indicators suggest the cancer is gone. I start crying before she finishes talking, and my daughter pats my back and tells me it's okay. She's going to be fine. The doctor smiles and says she's seen a lot of brave kids, but my daughter is something special. We leave the hospital with paperwork confirming remission and a follow-up appointment scheduled for 3 months out, and I feel lighter than I have in over a year. That evening, I call everyone who supported us through this nightmare to share the news, and my phone buzzes with congratulations messages for hours. My daughter falls asleep that night holding her journal from his mother, and I sit beside her bed watching her breathe, grateful for every clear scan and every day we get to build this new life together. That Saturday, Maria closes the salon early and transforms it into something that looks more like a celebration hall than a hair place. Pink and silver balloons cover every surface, and she hangs a banner across the mirrors that reads, 1 year stronger, in glittery letters that catch the light. My daughter bounces through the door and stops, her mouth falling open at the decorations and the cake sitting on the reception desk. Maria grabs both of us in a hug and announces to the room that we're officially celebrating survival, not just from cancer, but from everything that tried to break us. I look at my daughter's hair, finally growing back in these wild curls that spring out from her head in directions her old straight hair never did. And I touch my own hair that's coming in silver-streaked and coarse where it used to be smooth and dark. We stand in front of Maria's mirror together while she takes pictures, both of us laughing as my daughter makes faces and strikes poses like she's a model. The salon fills with women who showed up that first day when I was crying over Damien's text, plus Iris and Zoe, plus Damien's mother who brings a photo album of pictures she took throughout the year, showing our hair growth progress month by month. Someone puts on music and my daughter starts dancing with Zoe, the two of them spinning around the salon chairs while the women clap and cheer. I watch my daughter run between the styling stations, her curls bouncing, her face bright with joy instead of fear or pain, and she stops to hug Maria and tell her thank you for making this party. Zoe shows my daughter how to do some dance moves she learned at the school, and they practice it together while giggling about getting the steps wrong. These women who started as strangers became the family that caught us when we fell, who turned their salon into a fortress when we needed protection, who proved that love shows up in actions, not just words. My daughter is healthy with clear scans and hair growing back wild and free. We're safe in our apartment above this salon surrounded by people who would fight for us, and we're building a life that feels real instead of just survived. This isn't some perfect ending where everything works out exactly right, but it's real and filled with people who show up every single day to prove that choosing love over hate actually means something.